Ever feel like you're trying to predict the stock market when you're trying to determine when to lock your interest rate? Well, you're not alone. In this video, we're going to demystify the process of when to lock your interest rate. What's going on, motivators? My name is Justin Chermak, your VA loan advisor. All I do is teach you everything you need to know about VA loans from start to finish, and I'm licensed from New York to Cali to help you out to get the job done. So before we go any further, make sure you subscribe to this page because this is all I do is teach you about the VA loan. I've got a ton of videos and great resources just for you to learn more now. Okay, now let's talk about interest rate locks. Now, what exactly is a rate lock? So when you're going to buy a house, or you're actually under contract more specifically, okay, when you're under contract to buy a house, you're going to need to lock in an interest rate. But when do we determine when to lock in an interest rate? And how long is it good for? All right, so I'm gonna break that down right here, right now. Now, when it comes to rate locks, you can lock in your interest rate for set amounts of time. You can lock it in for 15 days, 30 days, 45 days, all the way up to even 90 days. But what happens is, after that rate lock expires, you either need to pay an extension fee to extend your rate lock, or you're going to break that rate lock and have to get a new one. Now, in some cases, this seems like an easy thing. If I break rate, well, then I'll just get a new rate lock. But what happens is, if you do break your rate lock, a lot of times there's a 30-day window that you have to wait in order to relock your interest rate. So sometimes it's not always the best approach. Now, with rate locks, you can lock for 15 days, but you can also lock for 90 days. But let's talk about that real quick, because let's say you got a really good interest rate and you want to lock it for as long as possible, right? So common sense would say, I'm going to go for a 90-day rate lock. Well, that's not always the case. You see, mortgage lenders know this, and they will impose higher fees on a longer rate lock period than they will on a shorter one. Now, in some instances, if you agree to take a rate lock of 15 days as opposed to 30, which 30 is the standard, might I add, if you agree to take a 15-day rate lock as opposed to 30, now, yes, you have to close faster, but sometimes you can get a little bit of a concession and a little bit less in closing costs that you'll have to shell out of pocket. So let's just say, for instance, I'm going to make a hypothetical case here. Let's say your interest rate is 7%. Now, it's 7%. They're not going to charge you any points or any other fees in order to lock you in at 7%, but we're going to lock you in for 30 days. Now, that typically is the standard, as I mentioned, but if you wanted to lock it for longer, say you wanted to lock it in for 60 days or for 90 days, they might say, okay, well, in order to do that, we're going to charge you half a point or 1 full point. Now, what is a point? Okay, so if your purchase price is $500,000 and your loan amount is $500,000, 1 point is 1 percentage point of the total loan amount. So on a $500,000 mortgage, that would be $5,000. So if your interest rate was 7%, they might say, hey, we're going to charge you $5,000 just to extend your rate lock out to 90 days. So in this clear-cut example, you can see that that's not always the best case or simplest solution for you. Now, in the same example, they might say, okay, we'll give you the 30-day standard rate lock where you don't have to pay any points, but you know what? Maybe we'll give you a 1/4 percentage point as a lender credit if you take a 15-day rate lock and you agree to close sooner. So in theory, you could get $1,250 back, right? Now, of course, this is just a hypothetical example. These numbers will change, but I just want you to understand the locking time period for when you choose to lock. Now, in addition to that, we also have 2 other things to consider. Now, number 1 is economic and market indicators. So, for instance, if we have an inflation reading coming out, or the Fed is going to announce that they're going to cut rates, or they're going to hike rates, or they're just going to have a meeting, their monthly meeting that they do, and they're going to come out with some news. Now, depending upon what the news that comes out is, we might want to hold off on locking in your interest rate because rates might get better. Or maybe, conversely, the rates are actually going to get worse, and we know that the Fed is going to say something that's just going to absolutely somersault the market. So we want to lock ahead of time because we want to get ahead of the curve. Now, really, there's a whole bunch of factors that go into determining when exactly to lock in your rate according to the market, because there's just so many different nuances things out there that can occur. And these things can really vary pretty drastically. In a 1-month period, you can see a volatility index of almost a full percent. Now, we've seen it several times in the past just several years. During 2022, we shot up over a percentage point within a month. And just as recently as September of 2024, again, we shot up a full percentage point within a 30-day period. Now, sometimes it goes good, sometimes it goes bad, but it's really up to you to make sure that you're conferring with the loan officer to decide when the best time to buy in is. Now, me, I have a little bit of an unfair advantage because I actually have a program called MBS Highway, and it gives me a market update every single day all right? It comes from this guy named Barry Habib, who's kind of like the Warren Buffett of the mortgage world. And every day I get a 5 to 10 minute update with what's happening in the market. So I don't have to look at the market. I don't have to predict it. I just get told from some of the best in the industry as far as what's actually occurring. And the best part about the video is at the very end, they tell me whether or not today or this week is a good time frame to lock in. So they will tell me, listen, we've got inflation numbers coming out later on Friday. So maybe because it's Monday now, we might want to lock in that interest rate today, so this way we can protect your clients. Now, this is a great tool, and I've literally saved my clients hundreds of thousands of dollars, okay? Of all my clients, I've saved them, on average a couple grand just by knowing when to lock in. But this is so crucial, and I cannot overstate how important it is to make sure that your lender has a tool just like this. Because if they don't, they're at an unfair advantage when compared to me, because I have eyes that they don't. It's basically like I'm flying with radar and everyone else is not. Now, lastly and most importantly, when it comes to locking in an interest rate, there are times where it's too early to lock. So for instance, if you just went under contract, it might be too early to lock. Now, in theory, we want to lock you in when we have your appraisal back, when we have your title back, and when we have a mortgage approval, a mortgage commitment. Now, if you don't know what any of those things are, go ahead and watch some of my other videos because I explain them all in thorough detail and everything you need to know about each stage of that process. There's 3 stages when you're buying a house. There's mortgage, title, and appraisal. So it's best to have a little bit of traction on all 3 of them, or at least having the process started before we actually decide to lock in your interest rate. Because here's the thing. What if we lock you in today for 30 days and your contract is 30 days or whatever, and all of a sudden, now we're late. We don't close on your closing date. You're gonna have to pay to extend your rate lock. And paying to extend your rate lock can be pretty costly. In some cases, it can cost you up to a full percentage point of the loan amount. So on a $500,000 loan, that's $5,000. So if you want to save yourself $5,000, make sure you're following these tips and these tricks in order to lock in. Now, my most ideal time period to lock someone in is after I've received the appraisal and confirm that there's no repairs or anything that need to be made, and after I've received the title and I confirm that there's no exceptions, no waivers, nothing that we need to get cleared up, and also after I get your mortgage commitment to know that you're actually approved for a mortgage. Because in theory, when we get these things, we still have like a 2 to 3 week time period before you're actually going to close. So that's what I like to call as the locking window. And that's the best time to lock in, is after you're under contract, the appraisal comes in, the title comes in, we have your mortgage approved, and now we're working on just finalizing everything. Now again, in a nutshell, it's all too important to make sure when you're locking that you're choosing the best time frame for you. You can lock from 15 days all the way up to 90 days. But if you lock for longer, it's going to cost you more. It's also important to make sure you have a lender who games the market, who can sit there and watch it and make sure that they tell you when the best time to lock in an interest rate is, because they have a little bit of a radar to see what's coming down the line. Like I said, that MBS Highway program that I have, super beneficial. And lastly, it's important not to lock in too early when you get in the process, because if you lock in as soon as you go under contract, you might have a bad time. Now, if you found any of this content helpful, make sure you subscribe to my page. My name's Justin Chermak. I'm your VA loan advisor, and this is all I do is teach you everything you need to know about using your VA loan. I'm licensed from New York to Cali, and I'm the one who can actually help you out to do this. You can call me from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday through Sunday, Eastern Standard Time, and I can help you get started on the process. And at the end, just make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my page. I need to know that you guys are out there listening and you guys appreciate this content, because I put a huge amount of work into making sure that I give you all the answers you need to know when you're buying a house. Motivator out.